Am I connected? Okay, it shows that I am. Now, quick apologies about me speaking quietly. It is, of course, very late for anybody watching this in the future. And my family, which I live with, is currently in bed. I probably should be, but I decided to stream today. And later it was much more convenient. So, for those in the future watching, since nobody's on at the moment, if any, currently I found something before we get started with the entire Minecraft thing. I found something very adorable, I must share, to be honest.
But sometimes more unexpected sounds grab our attention. Like this desert rain frog. Squeaking viral sensation. $11 million hits and counting. It sounds like a dog toy. But actually, this is the sonorous war cry of a very angry frog.
So, yeah. I've been watching a bunch of videos like this recently, and full credit for this kind of goes to HBO. Oh, HBO. Apologies, I am very tired. BBC for this one. Now, I have seen several videos of these frogs in question, and they're adorable, to be honest. They're very chunky, to say the least. Now, I find them quite adorable, and I've been sharing them with my family recently, and they're very cute. They're kind of derpy. Would love to have one, personally. But, here we are. Loading back up the game. I haven't been playing at all, to be honest. It's just streaming. Though running through everything today, things have been running pretty well. Though I did have some complications with my computer a little earlier, and it's running horribly. Things should pick up in a moment. There we go, yeah. So, here we are. Once again. Back into the realm of Minecraft. Now, I've been working on my build a little bit in my head. Trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. And I have something in mind. It is involving a little bit of a story of sorts. I'm a big fan of D&D and Pathfinder both, and I've got a character in question in mind, which I've been working on for a while, called Vester the Magician. That's his full title. Vester is his name, and that's what he goes by, being Vester the Magician. He is part of a fantastical, fairy-like world. A world which is completely full of magic and might. But trying to play that out in here is a little bit more difficult, as I have mods installed and moment for fantasy-like things. But I don't feel it's going to be very easy or very rewarding to try to make it to where the game is entirely like this. It's one thing to try to mimic, and the other thing to try to build to be exactly the same as what you had envisioned as an RPG-like thing, and this is not something I feel is best suited for an RPG of any kind. It is supposed to be this thing where it is a fantastical fairy-like land in question, since he is the creation of a little girl. I should really put that in a better place. But yeah, he's a creation of a little girl. Though though he is fantastical to an extent, he does heavily draw from standard like children's stories like Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast kind of thing, and in doing so that's kind of the world it comes into. This little girl as a woman as a little girl proceeded to imagine a friend for her to have, since she was a very lonely child. And thus came about Vester. He kind of became her imaginary friend in that regard. And thus she played on her own, and doing so eventually grew up and made them into stories, short stories, the game she would play. And it kind of became the Land of Fatale, which is a very fantasy-based location. Very heavily inspired, as I mentioned, by things like Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, so on and so forth. And it kind of pulls from there. Now, Fatale is the world in question. Now, I don't have a name for it yet, but it takes place for these short stories, which will be the backstory of what this character has, because he comes from the dream realm. He comes from the dream plane, which is where these stories take place, which is why he will be a wild-like sorcerer, casting magic very differently than most people. But I don't have a name for the trio of continents, or the trio of islands, which he proceeds to come from. Got a rainbow gem. Don't know what that one's gonna do. But he's kind of the knightly kind of sorcerer, because that's what he is. In Pathfinder, he's a cross-blooded, so it does get a little bit more complex, I will admit. But in the end, it's kind of a thing of he's the very innocent kind of person. And he kind of gets shunted off into the material plane, not knowing much about it, thinking about it as if it's the world he came from. The Pixie Isle being the main island of the three, which we'll be primarily focused upon, kind of comes into play being a very special place to him, because that's where just like all of these children's stories, well, most children's stories at least, kind of comes into play of having a princess of sorts, and this is a place where he does have one. As there's a lot of details that I've yet to really focus upon, but I do have details of, like, he is a sorcerer and what type of races kind of live there. As it stands, divine magic really is not much a thing. There is what would be labeled as a religious entity, though is not really thus, but is enough for clerics to acquire divine power from. Her name is the Bright Fairy. The Bright Fairy is one of two entities that created all of Fatale. It was supposed to be a partnership between two of them. Now, the Bright Fairy is an impeccably pale-looking individual, almost sprite in looks. Dragonfly-like wings, pointed ears to an extent. but all in all, still very much Fae-like for her kind of mortal features. And she's kind of the deity of the land and the sun, sky kind of thing, animals, and she had a sister called, which got known to being called as Mistress Shadows. Okay, I could have swore there was lava around here somewhere. I need a cobblestone farm so I can make these islands. Where is the lava? Well, the Bright Fairy and Mistress Shadows had a falling out. It was supposed to be a 2D effect kind of thing, and it was an entire thing created initially because of balance by a overseen force, which is the magical realm itself. The realm was created by magical forces, and it was kind of deemed that you could not have one without the other. Light and dark kind of thing, as per a lot of our own real world. And it kind of shifted a little bit as she kind of had a falling out with her sister. Mistress Shadows in question is a fawn-like creature with what looks to be that of almost moth-like wings. And being like that, she's much darker, and in doing so tends to be cloaked in shadows, which is why she got her name, being Mistress Shadows. So, with this falling out, the Bright Fairy believed that all should be granted the divine favor of her magic. Her sister, which became known as Mistress Shadows, kind of disagreed. They both had the same intent in mind, but Mistress Shadows kind of believed that one should earn magic itself, not being gifted. It should be a thing that if you're born with it, you have to work to be able to make it more powerful. Not that you're just gifted something because you exist. Though good intent, it wasn't exactly best suited for the world she believes should have been. There it is. There's the lava. Been skirting around all this time. For about 10 minutes. So, they had fallen out, and one of the few rules of that world is one who creates cannot name. The reason for this rule is because one who would create would have total control of the thing they created. This is fine for things like stories and whatnot that you create, but the entire instance of a person having total unbridled control. There's nothing that you could not say would not happen with them. So it's a thing that kind of the magical forces banned and required a form of peace treaty between creatures to name. The Bright Fairy proceeds to name several things inside of the Fairy Tale world, and she kind of proceeds to do that such thing for a long time, and it kind of persists to a extent where, in the end, her sister, since she had fallen out, kind of made a entity. A while before, there was a entity created known as Dak. Got known as Dak the Destroyer later on, as was one of the first ever created beings of this world. And because of this, it kind of became a thing that kind of was given the choice like many other creatures. Good and evil kind of a thing that you get the choice of, and that's one of the reasons why names are required. Because one without a name is kind of horrific. As you're not yourself. You're not really much anything. Which is why naming creatures is so important. It gives purpose, it gives hopes. And without that, there's not much to go off of. So, in the end, they kind of named him and he became this evil force, and that's where a lot of the tales in that world of holy knights, great wizards, kind of came about. But when the Bright Fairy and Mistress Shadows had a falling out, they kind of had a bigger issue, as they inevitably did fight amongst themselves. They fought amongst themselves and made their created realm here, which they helped to forge, and turned it into more of a battlefield. One of the things Mistress Shadows kind of did, as a little bit of payback kind of thing, was to create Vester. He was an unnamed creature. And in doing so, it kind of became a thing where he himself would wreak havoc until inevitably the Bright Fairy and Mr. Shadows kind of ended the fight. This kind of thing was a stalemate kind of ordeal, and in the end, the Bright Fairy named Vester, and similarly to how that kind of became this evil entity, he kind of became the opposite. He kind of became the good entity. In doing so, that is the backstory kind of how he was created. But the entire thought process kind of shifted a little bit, as it was initially set around what if you played an Eidolon. An Eidolon in Pathfinder is a very powerful companion which you can acquire inside of the game as a summoner. And if you are a certain druid archetype, it's quite powerful, and even though it is quite powerful, there are balances to it. But the entire idea kind of stemmed from what if. What if became the biggest question that kind of forged what he became. What if he was a Eidolon? What if something did create him? How would you play him? And so it kind of became a thing of, oh, let's go about and play him as a Ganzi. Okay, the Ganzis are very much chaotic of sorts. What else is chaotic? What would be chaotic? Well, why would it be chaotic as well? Kind of came about, and it came about because of what would a little girl's imagination, left alone to her own devices with nothing else to occupy her time but her own imagination, what would that come about? And born from that, being Vester, is the chaotic imagination of a young lonely girl. So he became born because of the need and want for a companion. And in doing so, he became her companion, her knight, her mage, in whatever she wanted. He is very much proficient with many weapons and armor. But in the world there, statistically, it functions as he does have the ability to create magical armor force, which is major armor. But the world kind of persists and changes as he is very ancient of a being for being so predominant as a force. The races kind of shifted and changed as inevitably a lot of the Fey races kind of found their purpose, their place, and it kind of became a thing of gnomes had the ability to shapeshift kind of shortly. They have the ability to be able to alter their form into that of a smaller size. They can shrink down very small. This being because, taking inspiration from David the Gnome, they actively lived inside of trees. In part of the second primary island that can be seen on the map, which I've yet to create, to be honest. But the second island in question has a bunch of different unique people. As lycanthropes are not much of a thing here, it became a ideal that, in the end, the shifter kind of became what the lycanthropes were. They were labeled as wild folk. People who would shapeshift into animalistic forms or take on animal aspects to empower themselves. Powerful kind of entities like this did kind of progress, and they do have their own pack rule, as they do have a leader. Their leader is a fairly powerful shapeshifter. I don't have a name for her yet, but she is a shapeshifter in her own right. She has primarily what she takes on the form of, but she has the ability to take on the aspect of thinking of the standard theme of wolf, kind of, because the lycanthropes kind of progress her as being the wolf theme. So she kind of became the pack leader because of her own powerful shapeshifting powers. Anybody who knows anything about the shifter knows that they are the druid who goes a little too hard for the wild shape. More recently, I played in a campaign where my dad kind of played one. He played a shifter, a wanderer of sorts, and that one I kind of played a Cabal cleric called Kip. He was a cleric of Apsa. Apsu, I believe Apsa is the proper pronunciation, but I'm not 100% sure. But he worshipped her, and through DM rulings and some careful things, basically just being skilled disciple, he was allowed to take dragon disciple levels. Those did harm him a little bit when it comes down to his spell casting. It was a fun character to honestly play. He did, by what was intended, break the rules a little bit, but the entire fact you could spontaneously cast cure spells, it was agreed that actually functioned for it. Boy, I can't see anything. Oh yeah, I need to breathe. I think this would be far enough, because in my head it is close to a bigger continent, which I've yet to expand upon, but I'm taking inspiration from other characters that I've played, well, I've played and I'm planning on playing. But with everything considered within the fantastical world this little girl kind of came up with, he kind of became a thing. So it's kind of a weird occurrence where he does not know he's a imaginary character. And it may break him if he does find out. Goes 5 in that direction. Do 5 in this direction, because this is what the first island is going to be. It's a fairly massive island, though it's going to primarily just have a small town. And a castle made out of very vibrant colors, being that of like pinks, purples, blues. Which is fine as it is. It's a lot of terracotta and wood, but I do believe in the fact that I'll be using a lot more of the cherry blossoms. Trees that were introduced more recently. I say recently, and it's been out for a while. Haven't really done anything with it, though I could have. I've been deciding on certain instances. When it comes down to the way the world functions, the magical world here kind of is a little bit different on how magic functions. So in doing so, the reality of the world he kind of comes into is much different than what he's used to. He casts wild magic, and doing so can have random sparks of uncontrollable magical events, and this is because he casts as if he was in the realm of dreams, and he actively, and I just did with my sister, which is the DM for, will be the DM for that one. He will be casting in a manner which is unique to him to an extent. But being able to cast like that, he would function normally while inside of the dream plane, which he comes from. Because instead of having bolsterous arcane components, he has more of a rhyme or a small limerick, maybe a story. I know very bardic in that regard, but it kind of comes from a bard itself. So there's not much that doesn't make sense with this, at least in my head. So it's a very heavy thing I know I need to work on, to be fair. But in the end, it's a very fantastical world I have been enjoying creating thus far. Of course, anybody who sees this video more than welcome to give names to certain NPCs, and I'll more likely take from them and put in my backstory for that in these short stories. That's of course if everybody would like them. It's not a thing one would making money off it, so don't feel that you'll be getting any monetary value for it. The most I would be able to make any money off of this, or I feel I should make any money off of this, would be anything that is gifted through like Twitch, YouTube kind of thing. And that's kind of the extent. I don't feel this should be limited down to being let one person have all the credit for it. It should be a thing that should be shared weirdly. It's one of the things why I'm talking about trying to do this for a career, and it's not something I feel that should be restricted to being paid for. though I may decide to inevitably in the future run a campaign with this all in mind. So I'm putting so much work into a campaign world practically that I don't have any form of real control after a certain point. Because these inevitably are all stories that take place really for any reason, except for the fact that it's the knowledge what he kind of pulls from. He pulls from this knowledge, and in the end, he knows only what those worlds let him know. What the little girl who's now a professional writer in that regard kind of let him be able to imagine in his own right. For reasons untold. In the end, I believe it will kind of come down to the fact of lack of thought that something such as this would have happened. But as it stands at the moment, the entire idea of belief being the power driven behind why he became real is kind of a very appealing thing to me, as he became real because of her believing he was for so long as an imaginary friend. And that is a very unique thing, in my opinion. So, as I progress building, it will be much more of a thing where I'll be building these islands and trying to get certain information figured out for my character. I'm even still working on the spells. The spells are kind of a nightmare to think about because of what would a little girl imagine him to be able to do. Anything is the possibility, but in the end it kind of comes down to what would she imagine? What would be so potent enough for her to imagine him being able to do specifically? What makes him unique? So, here I kind of am. Figuring out his spell list still. Though I do know I'm going to have a bit of enchantment. I even have it figured out because I love to compare things between both Pathfinder and D&D, new and old alike. He would be a fawn, wild-blooded sorcerer, wild sorcerer in that regard, and the entire twist of fates and wild magic is very role-playish. So it's a kind of a inspiring thing almost that this is something I am doing so unbelievably odd in comparison to what I am used to. I have several characters that I have created backstories for them, not written down. It's a very big deal, obviously, creating a character. Something you will recognize and be playing for a very long time. But creating something like this a little different, it feels different. Feels almost new. It's odd. It is normally against what I would be driven to try to create. I am much more akin to the fact of high fantasy things such as knights actively going out slaying dragons constantly, and it changes into the fact of what if your idea of what is evil kind of shifts. What knowledge of the world do you actually have? You have none. There is no knowledge which you can just derive any information from. So it kind of becomes a little bit difficult for me to try to build because it's so weird for me to try. It's not so much a side I haven't touched upon before. It's something I'm not used to. It's not my normal style. Like, I have a character kind of driven from a lot of Norse mythology in that regard, of spirits of death kind of thing. And in doing so, he is a gnome shaman who reincarnates every now and then and becomes what is labeled to be that of a walking spirit of the grave. Him and his familiar were presented very heavily inspired beyond this point because not that I've played, but I've thought about playing before. If anybody would like me to, please do mention. But heavily inspired a little bit on the concept of what I learned about the kindred spirits from League of Legends. Is kind of a very inspiring thing to me about that. The entire instance that you have these two entities, both represented being the same thing, neither good nor evil, but still representation of what death truly is. And being the type of character he will be, it's a thing where he will be represented as much more of a swift, peaceful thing, as inspired by the kindred spirits. But it kind of changed a little bit for me as his companion being a type of fox of sorts. Became a thing of the vicious, malicious aspect of what their nature is, truly. So, it's kind of what I normally would do. It's something very akin to what I normally would do. Even inspired a lot by anime with certain characters I've been working on for a while. It's one of those things that's not normal for me to be interested in something like this. And being interested is not bad. It's a different thing. It's a exploration that I haven't done, which I'm very interested in. That's why I'm talking about this so heavily. So that's kind of a thing that I've been working on a lot. I mean, when it comes down to high fantastical kind of things, I even have inspired by Asian mythology. That I have the Shokai Hunter, which anybody who knows the archetype for the Ranger in question knows they're pretty good, though things kind of are given to you like a level or two later than what they really should, though it is balanced. One of the things I believe about the archetype in question should be that you should have access to choosing humanoid shape changers thanks to kitsunes being a major thing. So, but it's kind of very specific as it wouldn't change the build for me if my DM changed it either way. I even mentioned that to my sister, who would be the DM in that instance, and we talked back and forth about how weird it is because we both know a lot of Asian mythology, though in instances kitsunes can be labeled as good and bad. It was a thing that this is not there. But even then, it's a thing where he is a hunter of these creatures because he himself has been ravaged by them at one point. His homeland was partly burned, and though an orphan boy, he actively tried to do his best growing up. And then one day, since he would bounce between house to household, he kind of realized the end result of what their attacks meant. The attacks kind of meant that it was the end of what he knew. And these hunters of evil creatures in this Asian-inspired area kind of took him in, knowing that things have changed drastically, and he kind of became this samurai-like ranger. I got my DM's opinion to be able to take Daisho expertise, which I will state is a phenomenal feat if you're specifically going for one weapon. To have Dex, but as it is, it's kind of a letdown. What do I have both there? What am I doing? I'm ranting. If I paid attention more, I wouldn't have this problem. I didn't need another shovel. Once again, ranting. So, back to ranting. These ideals kind of shaped him who he is, and he realized things were never going to be the same. And they took him in, and Daisho expertise is something he learned because of being dexterous with a katana. And I know Asian characters with katana, how original. But in this instance, what it does is grant you the effect of weapon finesse for both the katana and the wakatashi. Now, that's great, but it's a little bit of a letdown because there's only two singular weapon types. And lo and behold, apparently it also lets you increase the damage level one step for katanas and wakatashis, which is powerful beyond imagination. So it's a very potent thing, which I kind of like, but one of the things of, should the DM allow this is a big question. And yet, my sister's okay with it. There's not much reason why she shouldn't be, to be honest, since it's so limited and build specific. Though I do feel that, though I believe one thing, she should have final say. But it inevitably gives you such a potent thing for specifically two weapons. And in the end, it's pretty darn good. But that's a thing that kind of working with as a fire Oni kind of ravaged his hometown is what drove him to become an adventurer. It hopes to stop if it ever happen again. And that is so standard high fantasy adventurer, which is unreal. I'm even running a high fantasy campaign myself. But it's the simplicity which I'm drawn to for some reason. I haven't figured that out exactly. I haven't figured out why, but it's the simplicity about it which intrigues me, and it's a thing where I do enjoy working on him specifically. But yeah, in the end, Vesta just so happens to be a very important character that I've been working on recently. It's a lot to take in for what he is, what the world kind of introduced us as. It does follow a lot of what are the opposites of this world, and it kind of comes down to, one of the opposites is the fact that the Bright Fairy can't craft weapons, and in doing so with Mistress Shadows it does, because she's much more violent of the two. Okay, that's nice, fine, and dandy. Now, that information is nice, but what else does it give? Well, the initial weapon of what the Bright Fairy has is a lantern staff, which Mistress Shadows, at one point in time, when they used to work together, kind of helped forge. She forged it along with her scythe. And at one point in time, finding out how powerful Dak really was, which is a flame drake in this regard. She helped create what's known as the I don't have a real name for it, but it's known as more of a magical blade. A lot of these creatures have modified statistics, and as it's not that important to DM in question, it's one of them having free liberty to create anything which thinking about it now while talking out, it may be the reason why I enjoy it so heavily. The fact that, as one of the reasons why I run as a DM, because I enjoy it truly. It started off as me running because nobody else in my family had time at the time period. Well, my sister kind of did, but she refused to learn the rules of the time period. To be fair, she was much younger, and I was trying to get her more into it just to see if I could enjoy it as a group in question. I tried to do that with a lot of things. And she did. We've had both good and bad experiences. And then doing this one where I get to just create an entire world just for something I don't have to control. Which is very, very appealing. Just for the instance that it's something I don't have to run. I ran like the Forever DM stereotype. It was, I believe, standard there. Forever DM stereotype. It was every day I would be working on game if I wasn't working on school. And in the end, it became a thing where I would kind of run every single weekend, multiple times a weekend, and then I kind of reduced that down to once a weekend. And then my sister kind of came through, and after many, many years, just kind of joined up running and gave me a chance to play a character that was not in my own campaign. Because yes, for a while I did that, and then I kind of started tapering off as I was sacrificing more than what I really wanted. It wasn't really worth it for a while, so it kind of became a thing which I started to just give up. My sister started running and running more frequently. She got a lot better, honestly. And with this has introduced the opportunity for me to be able to create such a thing as Vester here. Yeah, fuck me. I do believe that it wouldn't have been the way it was if it wasn't for the fact that I did kind of just develop as a DM heavily first. My thing does come about with the fact that I've primarily learned to be a DM first. I learned to be a DM first and foremost, and then I kind of learned to be a player, which beneficial. I became a very, what my group has said, very straightforward, very knowledgeable DM of everything that I kind of focus around, and that's nice, but I wanted to be better, and I knew I kind of couldn't, which was the sad part. I kind of was lacking something. I learned that I was lacking my own storytelling to an extent. I was lacking it because of not being able to just experience truly what it was like just to play. I always had to be on the statistical side. So here I go answer my own questions again about why I enjoy it so much. Just creating such a nonsensical character that just so happens to not follow any of the rules, with no need for a DM to have to help try to run the world with. So yeah, answer my own damn questions. So yeah, it's been developing a lot. Like I said, she became a very well developed DM thus far, though I do still say there are something she still could work on a little bit as she's still trying to develop her own style a little. And it's a thing even more, I do believe that if she continues this route, she'll be an extremely good DM, potentially better than what I am, which I do truly hope. She should be able to develop at her own pace. She should be able to play things her own way. And that's kind of the thing I'm hoping. I kind of address so many rules with her, things which I question. And it being for any reason in particular, even if it is just to get her opinion, so hopefully she will better from information I acquired, or by chance that there may be something new that I just haven't myself learned. I started running less and less, thinking about it, as I kind of learned I did not have to constantly run as like a master of all this campaign world, having to constantly entertain for other people's purpose and benefit. So I guess it's kind of on me, where I kind of put that own pressure on me for so long. To be completely honest, these conversations I have with myself quite frequently, it's just this is the first time I'm actually streaming this late. This is the second time I'm streaming, period. I don't know exactly why, it just keeps coming to mind. It could just be the entire simplicity of enjoying myself playing Minecraft, or it could be just the entire facts. I didn't mean to pity. It could just be the simple fact that, yes, this is just a true fact. Sometimes the best answers to a question come about from your own inner workings. Okay, I have a lot of dirt. And it is also getting very late. It's about to be 12. I gotta get up early. Or earlier. Yep. Okay, I have a bunch of dirt. Let me dump some things. Some flint. Yep. Get all the ore in here. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Put you in here. Stick bones. Oh, these can stay. These can stay. Cobblestone. Yes. I never really understood why it is whenever I stay up so unbelievably late, my mind immediately shifts over to both good and bad and proceeds to just churn out questions, sometimes answers come out from it, but it just keeps churning out. It's like my brain's hit to being on overdrive. I've never really understood that. It's always been a thing. Maybe one day I'll have an answer. But at the moment, no, I don't. It could just be because of the type of person I am. But I'm not sure. But let's see. If we're going to do this correctly, let's see, this could be 3, 4, 5. 5 in each direction. Okay. There's the coastline over that way. I don't want to get too close there because it's supposed to be neighbor to a continent. a fairly large continent in the map I'll be creating. You'll only be able to see a small sliver of it, but it's going to have some unique areas which I have from other backstories, just because I want to help develop them. And having them in a partially developed world is a very interesting thing for me. So let's see. I think going out like 15 here is best. Let's start off with the coastline. I'll be using a lot of sand for this. Nowhere near as much quartz as my dad has used. We have a Minecraft server. I kind of helped develop in getting most of my family into playing Minecraft in question. Though some interest was there beforehand, it kind of got help being developed with certain bits and details showing certain YouTubers. Gotta give it up for Hermitcraft for that one. It's one of the things that inspired me to start doing this in question. YouTube and Twitch kind of streaming kind of came out as a secondary thing. And it's a great thing, in my opinion, to do for a creative outlet. I've always had a thing where I sleep much better afterwards. Mostly because it does mentally exhaust me, and that's something that most things don't do. I used to play games a lot more than what I do now. It's kind of a thing where I kind of fell out of certain games' favor after a while because I played them so much. I used to play Fire Red for so long, and here I am, kind of playing Minecraft for what I hope can inevitably one day become potentially a living. Now, let's see. There's no rhyme or reason for this pattern, just the fact that there is a pattern. But I forgot to bring my bed. But yeah, there's no pattern to what this is supposed to be. It's just there. It's going to be a big continental, well, continent-like thing. I say continent, but this is large. It's going to be technically a small island in comparison. Just enough for a small town, a forest, and a hillside. Up the top of the hillside, which is going to be primarily focused in that direction, is going to be the great castle where the great princess Penelope lives, which is the princess of the Fairy Tale world. So it's going to be a primary focus there, and I want to acquire cherry blossom tree with cherry trees. Bunch of the nether trees, I always forget their name, like mangrove. No, that's a different one. Warp stem, I don't remember. I really just do not remember all of them, to be honest. It's a lot. Partially, I do feel that Minecraft has progressed so unimaginably fast at this point. But to both good and bad. I have heard what a bunch of people have given their own opinions about is how Minecraft is progressing too fast and is no longer the unique and grand thing which was Minecraft in its own right. And it's kind of the point. It's not the same old Minecraft. It's going to involve new features eventually. If you want to play the game a certain way, it's your own way, it's your own game. your world. If you want to play with people, play with people. You want to mod the game, like I'm doing now. Currently I'm playing on 1.20.1 because of some bugs that I didn't want to have and some mods that I kind of want to have installed. And it progressed for me having this. I'm only mentioning this thus far because of what I've heard of the complaints of the upcoming mob vote. I've seen a bunch of different opinions on it. I almost died. I have those rains for fast healing, thank God, but I almost died. I should pay attention to my sword. My helm's about to freaking break. Yeah, we just have a little XP, that's all. Drop your bow? No, dang. Where are you, you zombie bastard? Did I acquire enough? Yes, I acquired enough for buying a skill point. Oh god. Who would have thought hard mode is actually hard? Yeah. I played hard mode once on Bedrock, and there's a lot of changes in Bedrock compared to Java. It's a new thing for me still to be playing Java more than I am Bedrock. My family plays on Bedrock. And one of the differences between this is how hardcore is a thing here, and I did that once, and that was, oh boy, all long. And yet, very short endeavor. It was a very long and a very short endeavor, as it didn't last long, as I died very quickly. I didn't expect to be hard. I played hard mode before. Why would it be different? Oh, you have one life. Okay, big to do. Armor practically means nothing. It means practically nothing against most mobs. Like, if I hit this guy here, I could have diamond armor on right now, and it would be nothing in comparison. Yeah, they just would not care. I know it says it would do something, but it wouldn't. So I thought, why would it be different? Okay, I can just do things like this. Okay, it has unbreaking now. That's useful. I didn't really address this beforehand, but if we take a look here, I have a texture pack on. Very interesting one I initially did not want to work. Visual enchantments. Highly suggest go taking a look. I don't know how to pronounce the name, so I'm not going to, because I will insult them trying to pronounce the name. I've never been good with names. Unless I've known you for years. Good luck. Okay. Let's see. Buy another skill point. I wanted to go into brewing, and I didn't know how much this mod of mine, which one was it called? Farmer's Delight. I did not realize how much Farmer's Delight was going to be playing a role here. So it functions off cooking. And if I zoom out real far, up here is the cooking things, as it gives things such as max health, attack speed, and whatnot when you're not hungry. And this is a connector. a spirit gateway, which when I get it by spending a point, it will grant me access to being able to be very close to the skill tree. Now, I do have to go into a little bit of what the blacksmith's path is, going more into the soldier, but it will let me branch out within 3 skill points required to be able to get into it. Like, we know how +2 max life when you're not hungry. That is powerful. I can go into here for max life in question, but that's kind of not as beneficial to me. Like, I do want to try to branch off into a little bit the ranger if it benefits me more, like the attack speed. Like, yeah, over here. Attack speed, +2% for a few skills, and then if I drag that over here, 5. Jump height, I mean, this is a lot, and I've only got 100 bubbles. I want a 12. And if I want to change it, I gotta kill the Ender Dragon. Whoopee, in that instance. I'm gonna die. Cancel that. Chose 1-1. Evasion chance on really effective potions. I can't get benefit of this until I get to the nether. So, yeah, here we are. I didn't know how much Farmer's Light was going to be playing a big role into my playthrough here. I have no idea how long I'll be playing. I may actively choose to install, if I don't have it already, Armor's Workshop. No, it does not look like I did. Just for the fact I can't really have NPCs anywhere, which is kind of a thing I would love to be able to just create for static things like, oh, this is the Bright Fairy, you can talk to her here. Get a little bit of written information about her. Maybe go and actually build an investor a little bit. But no. No, I didn't want to deal with anything magic related to start off with. Which really didn't have any bearing here, since I could just use Armor's Workshop to retexture certain things. But I remember when custom NPCs used to be a thing, and it's no longer, which is a little sad in that regard. It has been updated. It was a lovely mod, but it seems that its time has ended. But that is life, I guess. Armor's Workshop being able to run, and I have this one mod I may be able to find updated that will let me be able to pose armor stands, and if I can do that and throw this together with Armor's Workshop, I'll be able to make them look like anything I want. Make the armor stand invisible even if I wanted to. It's the beauty of modding. There's even a thing where I had, at one point in time, the ability to sit on slabs and stairs. Love that little thing, just for the nonsensical reasons. And if I, for a stupid reason, increase my render distance to about 20 chunks and have it reload, I may be able to see how far I'm working with. Okay, that being the island over there is a, mind you, beyond the fact that my frame rate is like gone in comparison to what it was beforehand. Over there will be a pretty big island. It'll be chaining around, going around this area. Over there will be a pretty big one, and then it will branch over to about here-ish. And then the last one will be a, I'll have to knock these out because I'll be having another village over here. Because around here will be a massive dark forest which I'll be creating. For different reasons, different characters that I'm working on. Yeah, somewhere around over here will be the final island I'm working on, which is a very big and very volcanic area, as is known to be the Isle of Desolation. Which is actually where Vestal comes from. The Bright Fairy created him in spite of the Bright Fairy wanting to ignore the fact that you should not just give people power randomly, because this doesn't mean they're a good person. It means you're enabling them to be evil in the end. But just because you haven't doesn't mean they're not good in the same right. So that's the Bright Fairy in that regard, and doing so created Vesta to prove a point that just because somebody has power does not mean they're going to be very peaceful. She never had him named, and inevitably the Bright Fairy named him Vesta, and thus as in life it gave him the option to actively be good if he really wanted. Which is the beautiful part of his story. It is exactly as intended. It's exactly the fact of him being such a creature that he did inevitably become good out of his own choices. Why can't I use you? Just curious. It can be inserted into item sockets. I'm assuming that I would have to have one of you. I have the bone quiver at the moment, which is great for loot, but in the end, I would love to have the healing. The explosive sounds stupid. Full chances nice. Damage from poison enemies. Potions, attack speed. It's a lot. I do intend on using a lot of copper, which is why I've been smelting all this copper, which let me acquire that XP, and of course that's an odd side half. Well, good to know my fast healing's better than the fire. But now I have no chest piece. Did I equip it? No. You go there. Knowing that I'm going to be burning through so much, let's see, do I have any leather that I can work with? I made the iron armor on a whim, and I kind of don't need it to be iron no more. Because it apparently does nothing against creepers. And the answer to this is no. Even though I'm a vegetarian here, I'm going to have to try to slaughter some cows, maybe some horses. So yeah, over there is where the permanent island is going to be a massive, small fishing, well, massive for the island fishing village. Wrong location. Video. I could run higher than 7 with streaming. I just don't want to. I don't want to take the chance of things messing up. So it's been fun ranting. Starting on my island. The island in question. I have my chest piece here. My bad. My stupidity is immense. So, with this all in mind, knowing that I've done so little, kind of just answer my own questions a bit. Knowing that over there is going to be where the island's going to be, that was at least helpful for me. I need so much dirt, I need so much gravel for concrete, I need so much sand. Luckily enough, you can buy sand from wandering traders. Unlucky, I have to set up farms for trading. I need emeralds. Upside, I'll be able to have enchanted books. Downside, I still can't find diamonds. I don't think I'm going low enough. I don't remember how low. I was going to 14 because of what memory served me. But that's apparently wrong because I dug for a little bit and didn't find anything. Didn't find one. So here we are once again. So yeah. I don't know, did I have anything for rotten flesh? My cap lock's on. Could I have leather? I can shears I can use shears on boots? On the cutting board? Really? Interesting. Okay. This is very different. This is why I installed the Farmer's Delight. I wanted to play around with it a little bit, and it's quite lovely. But I'm going to say thank you all for coming along on this journey, listening to me rant for a very long time, an hour 15. I'm going to say once again thank you all for listening, watching. Things were going pretty well. I have 2 followers. I know I set a goal of 100, but that's because I think 100 is a good starting point for something, and I have 2, which I'm very excited about. And thank you all for watching, once again. And like I mentioned, through Twitter, this will be up on YouTube. Though I don't know how well it's going to do on YouTube. I found YouTube has shorter content as being much preferred. So once again, thank you all for watching. And hopefully I'll be able to see somebody in another stream. So we can enjoy things together, as a community as a whole. Because it really sounds sad that I'm sitting here in front of a camera just talking to myself. Ranting to myself, answering my own questions. It makes me sound a little psychotic. So, thank you all for watching. Hope to see you in another stream, or video in the case of YouTube.